What's up, y'all? It's Marshall Lee of Donkey Jaw Projects. How you guys doing? Wanted to make this video about branding today. I have, if you've been following me for any length of time, you probably have noticed that I have changed um, I've changed a lot of my branding around from a lot of times actually. And I'm still thinking of doing it some more. Not because I want to. I wish I had the same consistent branding through the whole time I've ever been promoting anything. But there's a lot of reasons why I changed some things. But recently I changed my YouTube name from Marshall Lee to Marsh Makes Comics. And part of that is because I feel like I am definitely focusing in on comics for the long haul. Like, I think that's what I'm doing. Like, I know that's what I'm doing. Like, that's what I feel like I'm being led to do. That's what I feel like it just makes sense. It just seems like that's who I am, and like when it comes to like the main thing I do, that just seems like the thing that I want to be the main thing. And it's been that way for a while, but you know, it's just been more and more focused over the last year or so. So I changed it to Marsh Makes Comics, because that way, if you were to see my name come across or whatever on YouTube, it would just be like you know exactly what this YouTube channel is about. It's about a guy named Marsh who makes comics. I mean, it can't get any more simpler than that. I've thought about changing it to like Donkey Jaw Projects or something else I'm going to be talking about in a minute here. But, you know, I don't know, like, people don't seem to feel attached to that. Like, I don't ever hear anybody really repeat that so much, or sometimes when they do, they kind of stumble over it. Although I did have a friend, James, who watches my who hangs out in my Early Bird Artcast often, and is an awesome contributor to the stuff I'm doing, and just an awesome artist in his own right. He said that when he searches for my stuff, he searches DJP, which is another way I've kind of put it, DJP, you know. So, you know, I don't know. I'm really conflicted on how to approach branding, and I guess I'll talk first about a couple of other changes I'm thinking about making, and I'd like to hear what you guys think. One, I was thinking about changing Donkey Jaw Projects to Donkey Jaw Comics. Once again, you know, kind of re-emphasizing that this is what I'm doing. This is my main thing. What's most important to me as far as like what I'm creating and putting out into the world, and how I want to present myself. It kind of flows the same exact way as Donkey Jaw Projects, Donkey Jaw Comics. Donkey Jaw Projects is like, the reason why I picked the word projects, I thought about that a long time ago, because I was thinking of business names since I was in high school, you know, and stuff, and all kinds of times. So I thought that there's a lot of things that are called productions or entertainment or music or art or comic, or like comics. They all have that thing at the end of their thing. But I didn't want to be so specific, because I do more than just comics. I do more than just music. I want to do all kinds of things, you know? So it's like, I wanted people to know that. That's why I picked projects. Like, I wanted people to know that I do all kinds of different things. But I don't know if that's the way to go anymore, and I'm really just focusing on comics anyway, so I still can do more things. It's like Marvel Comics does a lot of things, you know, but they are called Marvel Comics, you know. And, you know, you can kind of expand that as you go, but they're Marvel Comics. that's like the basis of what they do, you know, and where everything comes from. So DC Comics, you know, all that stuff. Alternate Comics, Image Comics, all that. I mean, Image Comics is almost just called Image, but, you know, I don't know. So it's kind of weird, but I guess Marvel is too. Marvel's just called Marvel, DC is just called DC. You know, it's always confusing on what to do. And the thing is too is like, I don't really know if I want to create, like, if I want to have like this publishing imprint brand. I don't want to become alternate comics where, like, I love alternate comics. I want to be like a creator who makes comics for alternate comics. So it's like, but I don't necessarily want to have this job where I'm not making comics. I don't want to ever get to that point where my main thing isn't making comics. I don't want it to be like, oh, I'm a publisher now, not so much a comic creator. I want to always stay a comic creator or a content creator at the very least, because I love the artistic side of things. I love being an artist and being a creative person, visually and audibly, all that stuff. So, you know, having the imprint is just, I always thought that I was going to do the business, but now I realize that side of things isn't the part I'm really excited about as much as, I mean, I want to do both kind of, but I don't want to get sucked into only business type of thing. So I don't know. We'll see how that all pans out. So anyways, there's all these kind of weird things I'm thinking of. So I was thinking about changing Donkey Jaw Comics. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think of me changing changing from Marshall Lee to Marsh Makes Comics. And then another thing, a little minor thing I was thinking of changing too is, and this was because I was watching a really awesome episode of The Artcasters, which is with Scott Serklin and Joshua Kimball, and they had on Gazbot as a guest this week talking about the legacy of Stan Lee, which is an amazing episode. I love that episode. You guys got to check it out. I'll put a link in the description. That's like one of my favorite Artcasters now, the episodes. So it's just making me think a lot about Stan Lee too, and being inspired once again by Stan Lee. And I'm going to start actively trying to learn specifically from him more and more, as far as like branding and promotion and stuff goes, especially. So that's kind of what's sparking a lot of this. And so they were talking about how awesome the bullpen was and stuff, and like how he kind of put forth that idea of the bullpen, and it made it so interesting to read a Marvel comic book. That and so many other things, you know, just cause people to see a personality in the imprint instead of just a company that happens to put out your favorite comic book, you know, where there's not really a personality behind it like other companies have been in the past. And in the present, really, too. So, I don't know. I want to attack things in a way that, you know, is more interesting and makes more sense, you know? So, a couple things I want to talk about branding. I don't want this to be a super long video. I do have to get to making comics on my lunch break here. So, what I wanted to do was talk a little bit about, there's this thing where branding, for one, is not just about, you know, what you visually see. You know, that's a common misconception. A lot of people think it's about what you see, like the logo and you know, just the way you publish your books or whatever you do. You have a certain sound or a style or whatever. That's just one little part of branding, but a big part of branding is your reputation. And like, are you a reliable brand? Are you a brand that, you know, has good values? You know, are you a brand that you go to have fun with, you know, like that you can enjoy in a fun way, or are you more of a serious brand? You know, there's just a lot more to branding than just the visuals. And you know, do you come through on what you say you're going to do and stuff like that? That's actually more important in branding than the visuals. There are people who have great brands who haven't even come up with a logo yet, or anything like that. Kind of like me, I haven't put out a logo really, but I don't know if I'm a great brand though. That's the only thing. So there's that. And one thing I'm realizing is finding, I don't think you necessarily have to have like this perfect branding, or, to me, it seems like, and maybe I'm just biased because I've struggled so much with it. But so many people do not have perfect branding, but you know who they are and what they do, and even Marvel Comics, they weren't always Marvel Comics. There was a time where they were Timely Comics, and then they were also Atlas Comics or something. I forget. Like, they had a few different names before they finally landed and stayed on Marvel Comics. They were a magazine company, to start with, and they got into comics. That was just part of their deal, and then they've had other ventures that made more money than comics for most of the company's life, actually, to be honest. Even now they do, because it's movies, that makes the money. Comics is just a little part of their overall business. So it's just like in merchandising and stuff like that. So yeah, it's kind of crazy. Like, we think of Marvel Comics, or like we think of all these other companies having great branding, but DC Comics is Detective Comics. Like, that would make me think, oh, so they only have detective style comics. Well, no, they're a superhero company, and Batman is kind of a detective, and that's where like they kind of came up with that, So it's like, there's that, and back when they first came out, that's kind of how things were. But now we think of them as just DC. Okay, we know what DC is. It's a superhero comic company, basically, and it's one of the big two, Marvel being the other one. Everybody knows that. Nobody even thinks of what do the two letters mean most of the time. So, and then there's like the old EC Comics, it's like, that's a huge brand. It still is a brand, and it was back then. And it, what that stands for? It stands for Educational Comics. Like, there's nothing educational about EC Comics except for these little weird, odd comics that weren't really their big bread and butter ever, or maybe they were at first, but what they're known for is horror and crime comics that they created. And it got so huge, and then eventually they got kind of killed by the Comics Code, unfortunately. And, well, not the Comics Code, but by Seduction of the Innocent book, and that guy who did all, whatever. You guys know the story. If you don't, check out stuff, do your research if you want. So, and the thing is these brands have changed what they've done. Like, they've changed what they were called, and they've also, some of them, like Marvel, and they've also changed what they do. You think of like Disney and stuff. Like, he obviously, his basis is animation. He did start out in animation, but he's gone through. They went through so much evolution until to the point where like a big part of their branding is sorry, I got distracted by a text message that came through on my phone that I'm recording this on. So but Disney, like, that obviously the why can't I think of the word, the amusement parks are a huge part of the business as well. And I don't know, there's been changes in how they've approached animation and things like that. But maybe they're not the best example of that, but there's been a lot of brands that have changed what they've done and changed who they are, throughout the years, and even changed like their logos and things like that. So you don't have to have a perfect branding, and I'm not saying that I have a problem. This is not a video against branding. I think if you can get it good, then that's awesome. And if you can stick with it, that's a great thing. Like, do that. If that's something you've been able to figure out and it works, do it. Keep up with it. Don't forsake that, But if you haven't been able to do that and you've struggled in that area, don't, like, I get really discouraged thinking about it a lot because I've struggled so much in this area. It's not the end of the world. I'm finding that out. It's not the end of the world, and I just kind of wanted to put that out there. The last point I wanted to make is finding your brand. It's almost like this kind of dawned on me today. It's almost like finding your style. So you don't really even know, like, a lot of times in the early stages of something, even like say a musician's early stages, or I mean there's a lot of examples out there. I mean, look at like somebody like David Bowie. He's different. He was different every time he came out, with an album. A lot of these musicians kind of go that route. They kind of rebrand every time and stuff. So there's that, but there's also like this idea of like kind of finding your style. A lot of people will say, you shouldn't try to intentionally create a style and stick to that because you're actually limiting yourself and stuff. And but eventually your style will just come, if you want to be an artist who has a style. Some people just like to always work in different styles. I might be that type of person. I don't know. I know Mark Crilly talks about that. Like, he kind of does a different style with every book. So I think if I saw a Mark Crilly drawing, I probably wouldn't be able to tell it was him. For sure, because he like literally every single book is a totally different style. So I really don't know what his art looks like. Is that a bad thing? I don't know. He's good. He's created a pretty awesome career for himself, I think. I mean, I don't know how much what's his net worth or whatever, I don't know how much he makes or whatever, but he's obviously got a huge presence on YouTube, and he's made a lot of books, and it sounds like he's pretty comfortable, from what I can tell. But the thing is I do feel like finding your brand and even what you want to do, like, it's more of a journey than sometimes people make it out to be. Sometimes, like these marketing gurus and stuff, they'll be like, you gotta find your brand and stick to it and push it. And there's a lot of people who have gone through different brands and reinvented themselves a lot too, and have also become successful. I mean, Gary Vaynerchuk, he was a big all about wine and stuff. That was like his main brand, and he made a success out of it. Now that's not anything but an example of something he did in the past. Eventually he wants to become the owner of the Jets football team. That's going to be a whole different Gary Vaynerchuk. I mean, he'll probably always be doing what he does anyways, I don't know, but his brand happens to be just like himself now. So I mean, there's different things. There's all kinds of different things. But I feel like finding your brand might be a little more like a journey than a lot of people might say, and it might be more like finding your style. You might not even know it, but you already have a style. Like, there's probably things that people already kind of know me for. I don't tend to be like this kind of concise, super energetic, like YouTuber that kind of has these goofy, quirky things. I tend to be like the more relaxed, chilled out. I'll discuss something with you and we'll have fun, just kind of being in a conversation type of person. So I probably already have somewhat of a style and somewhat of a brand. Creativity and imagination, I would think or hope, is a big part of my brand. I don't really know. And maybe I don't need to know, I don't know. But I kind of have some ideas of what I want to do as far as my presentation of the brand now. And it's definitely getting more focused. And it has something to do with like old retro stuff, like bringing in old retro influence, but then bringing it in a dynamic, new, fresh way, in a fun way, in an escapist way, and storytelling. Like all of that, whatever that is, that's what I would like to be. And imagination, things like that. Like, so I'm kind of honing in on what it is, and I think I'm getting a lot closer to what makes sense. It's stuff that I just always gravitate to anyways. So yeah, that's about it. This video is about 20 minutes long. I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me and checking out this video. I know this isn't an artsy one. But hopefully it's something that's interesting and helpful for you guys. Let me know Let me know what you think about branding in the comments, and how you tend. I mean, does this resonate with you, or do you think you should have like a perfect planned out brand that, you know, I like that too. You know, I wish I was like that, you know, but for some reason I just can't do it. And there's been a lot of weird obstacles that have stopped me from it, but there's also just my own indecision and whatnot. But I think I'm coming close to a brand. I don't know. We'll see. But I really appreciate you guys watching. I just be curious what your thoughts are on the matter. And yeah, just be encouraged though. If you can't figure it out, if you can't figure out what your perfect brand is, you know, that doesn't mean that you're never going to get anywhere. Just keep working, keep putting projects out, and let your brand find you if that's the way it has to be. Right now I'm making a comic every month, and I think through that I'm finding out what I love to do in comics, what I love to do as a creator in general, and I feel like I'm finding my brand that way. And also the videos and just all the things I create, you know. So anyways, that's all I got to say about that. Thanks for watching. I will talk to you on the next episode of whatever on this YouTube channel. All right, peace out.